A vintage performance from Marc-Andre Fleury as the Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-2 win to close out the mini road trip. Let's break down all the action on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? Welcome into a Locked On Wild postcast, fresh off of a 5-2 win for the Minnesota Wild over the Montreal Canadiens to get back to 2-1. And the bulletin board material, I guess, for this one, great special teams play, no big lapses on defense, nobody got hurt. Holy cow. Montreal is a mess. That was something. From the Montreal Canadiens here tonight. They end up going to the box 8 times. They gave up 2 shorthanded goals. And so it's one of those kind of two-sided coins in this game, as the Minnesota Wild took care of business. They didn't, until the game really got out of hand at the end. They didn't really get into kind of stooping down to Montreal's level. They played pretty crisp the first 2 periods, got out to the early lead, added to the lead in the second period, and then there were a ton of fights in the third period that led to the Wilds having a few players, including Eriksson Ek, head to the locker room early. But this is one of those situations where you don't want to take an opponent lightly, and you just kind of want to take care of business. And the great equalizer is special teams goals. I thought the power play looked really good here tonight. Obviously, you get the 2 shorthanded goals from Brandon Duhaime and Connor Dewar to start it. Kirill Kaprizov did his thing. Eriksson Ek looked really good. We do need to talk about something that I think bears watching with the top power play unit going forward. And Marc-Andre Fleury was just real solid, albeit not challenged a ton in the net. And so you had, all in all, you had elements that all combined to create just a nice win against Montreal. And the defense didn't have any major breakdowns in this one. Just a really, really good win for the Minnesota Wild here. And it shows you, I think, the level of disparity between teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs and teams like the Montreal Canadiens. And it's always that old adage of you're probably not as bad as the loss to Toronto. If you can go somewhere between that game and this one, then you should be just fine. But I mean, this was a game in which, up until the last couple of minutes, I don't think it was ever really one that you sweat, because Montreal just kept giving things back to the Minnesota Wild. Every time it seemed like they would gain even a little bit of momentum. I think back to one of the power plays that they had where they basically were just about on the doorstep of scoring, and then Slafkovsky got called for his second penalty to negate the power play chance, and Montreal went right back on the kill. And I believe that was the second Eriksson Ek power play goal that was scored by the Wilds to make it at that point then 5-1. It ended up being 5-2. So it's a situation of just playing your game and taking what the opponent gives you. Now let's talk about the power play for a second. Loved what we saw from the power play here tonight, because you had a couple of different key elements that were added in here tonight. Number one, Marcus Johansson being able to be the zone entry player, frees up Kirill Kaprizov to do more without the puck, to get himself in position to not face the amount of traffic that you face coming into the zone directly. And Marcus Johansson was great all around tonight, but especially at those zone entries. There were a couple of instances in which he was able to glide through multiple players in traffic, The one where he gets into the zone, he passes it to Matt Zuccarello, who has the cross-ice pass to Kirill Kaprizov, hits him perfectly in stride, and Kaprizov able to get the power play goal at that point to make it 4-1. That's as good as it gets. That's as good as your power play is going to look. And even in the instances in which they didn't score, they were moving the puck around. They got shots on net. There were more than a few instances in which Montembeault had to make some pretty tricky saves to prevent further damage. But then Eriksson Ek is the net front guy. He was able to clean one up, clean a couple up. It just was it was a really, really good, I think, all around performance by the Wild. Now, again, we measure it off the fact that you're playing Montreal. So you got to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But this wasn't a game. We've seen the Wild struggle against teams like this over the last couple of years. And there was no struggle tonight because even though they didn't score any 5-on-5 goals in this game, which is a rarity, I thought offensively they held up their end of the bargain too. So not only did you win the penalty kill battle, perfect 5 for 5. Wild did a great job all night of getting the puck out of the zone and getting it down to the other end of the ice. You also had the 2 shorthanded goals, great plays by Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime in both instances. That second goal, I have no idea what happened, how that puck bounced up over Montembeault into the net. It's just one of those things where you're like, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but grip and rip from Brandon Duhaime to get the scoring started. The power play was good, and 5-on-5, I mean, we saw some really good things from, I think, just about every line that was out there at points throughout the night, and you had a lot of different hands getting opportunities to be on a line with Eriksson Ek and Marcus Johansson. So for all that we saw go wrong against the Toronto Maple Leafs, we saw a lot of good here in this one tonight. And Faber Middleton, very solid. Brodin and Addison. I thought Addison had some nice plays defensively here tonight as well. You're not as tested in this game as you were against Toronto, so that certainly helps. But again, no defensive breakdowns really in this one to speak of. And so I thought there was a lot of good that the Wild were able to accomplish in this game here tonight. And again, tip of the cap to Mr. Marc-Andre Fleury. Had some sensational saves in this one, but you know, again, both sides of the coin. Fleury wasn't really tested until the third period, and he had a ton of really good saves in this game, but the Wild did a really good job of keeping Montreal from getting anything established in the defensive zone. They held a lot of zone time, a lot of power play time early on. And, you know, on the penalty kills, did a great job of clearing. So that's how you make happy goalie with a defense and a forward group that keeps things clean in front of the net. And so I want to just look quickly at the, before we kind of switch our focus to looking at what we have coming up here next. I want to go to the keys to the game and just take a look at how those ended up for the Wild here in this one tonight. So as we see here, I'm trying to do this, but I don't think it's going to cooperate. Well, the Wild did not get called for a too many men penalty. That was key number 1. So that got taken care of. No real bad exchanges on the in getting multiple players off the ice. So no problem there. The Wild did a great job as well of just keeping the net front clean and controlling zone time. So for tonight, Wild went 3 for 3 on the keys to the game which is usually a good recipe for success for your Minnesota Wild. Now, I want to get to your comments when we continue tonight's Locked On Wild postcast. So hit the comments section. We've already got a few comments that we will run through. But if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show here tonight, make sure that you do so. And we'll get to those here in just a second. Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-2 win over the Montreal Canadiens. More of our Locked On Wild postcast coming your way after this. Today's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Game Time. And if you are a fan of living in the moment like I am, you've probably tried multiple times to buy tickets for a sporting event or a concert the day of. Your success rate may not be all that high because a lot of times you run into tickets that are super expensive, or you get to the event after buying your tickets and it turns out you're sitting right behind a beam or a pole or something that obstructs your view. Game Time can help eliminate all of those uncertainties with helping you pick up the best tickets you can find the day of. Game Time offers last-minute tickets, flash deals, as well as views from all seats in the venue and their lowest price guarantee, plus event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Minnesota Wild pick up a 5-2 win over the Montreal Canadiens here tonight. And we're getting to your comments here at this point in the show. So let's fire them off. First, we have on YouTube, MPH, face-off percentage, Montreal with a 53-47 edge. I was actually just going to look at this because I know Eriksson Ek had a good day in the face-off dots, winning 11 of 17. Beyond that, you had Freddie Gaudreau, I should say, who won 7 of 13. Marco Rossi won 2 of 7. Marcus Johansson went 0 for 3. Ryan Hartman, 3 of 7. And Connor Dewar, 3 of 7 as well. And, you know, face-off percentage is something that it seems like it either doesn't hurt you or it does. And so it's one of those things where I pinpoint it when they play a team that can really expose the Wild in the face-off circle. But as I've learned in covering the Wild over the last few years, what happens after the face-off is equally as important as getting it. So yes, Montreal able to control the face-off percentage here this evening. Although the Wilds kept it close and Eriksson Ek was able to do his thing in the face-off circle. Next up for Sloth, Mojo had a great game, I thought. You are correct, sir. I talked about it with the zone entries. Honestly, Johansson was so good at those tonight. And it's something that I think is an underreported element of this power play unit, is having somebody else who can do those zone entries to allow Kirill Kaprizov to be freed up off the puck early so that he can be away from the traffic and thus can get up to the net a little quicker, is something that I think this team should look at. I know Alex tweeted about that throughout the night. I fully concur. I know you want to have Matt Boldy up on that unit when he's back because he's a good player and a good power play player as well. But Johansson gives them a different element when he's out there on that top unit to be able to take that puck and allow Kirill Kaprizov to cook, as the kids say. So yes, Johansson had a great game tonight. And it's a tough situation for him and Eriksson Ek too, because they're playing with different guys every time they're out there. And I think they did just fine while they were out there tonight. Back to MPH, Marco Rossi, only 13 minutes here tonight. Yeah, that was interesting. Albeit it was just under 14, but still, you want to see, with the number of players that got booted, Eriksson Ek getting booted, which we'll talk about in a bit, and players in the box for large stretches of the second half of that game. Would have liked to have seen Rossi get a little bit more time out there. Although what I did see, and I liked it, was Rossi getting some penalty kill time in those final couple of penalty kills. And I know that's out of necessity, but he more than held his own and, again, was winning puck battles. He had some great shots on net tonight. And so the Marco Rossi train continuing to be full steam ahead here over these first few games of the season. All right, we got to get to my boy Kane at Locked On Golden Gophers. Brock Faber, yeah, we're huge fans of Brock Faber here at Locked On Wilds. You could say, I don't know if we want to go this far, but you could say Brocktober. I'll leave that up to you if you want to go that route for Brock Faber, but he's just looked so solid over these first few games of the season. And the thing that I liked what we were seeing too is he's starting to step up in the offense as well. There were a few instances in which he got the puck in the offensive zone, and instead of being that perimeter defenseman that holds back and tries to kind of set the play up, he's stepping up towards the front of the net to try to further move the offense closer to the goalie. So seeing stuff like that leads me to believe that, as many have discussed, he's starting to add a little bit of that offense to his game. And if he can continue to do that while also being as cerebral and solid as he is on defense, sky's the limit for Faber. All right, let's go to Grant's thoughts on Dakota Mermis here tonight. I thought Mermis was solid. I know he had the fight, which was the big highlight for him tonight after John Merrill got leveled by a hit late in the third period. So I know that's going to be the thing that everybody sees. But honestly, the thing that I want to see most from defensemen when they get put in spots like this is to just not – it's like an offensive lineman in football. If you go through a game and you don't really call a guard's name really at all, that's a good day. And with the top level guys on defense for this Wild team, they don't need Mermis to be, they don't need him to do much more than just his job. And I thought, again, didn't see any notable defensive breakdowns in this one tonight. And so I thought Mermis was solid. I liked what he was able to do with the Wild last year. And so he's obviously more than capable of being a fill-in guy for this team, depending on injuries as the rest of the season goes forward. Let's get to Will. Ek getting the boot was garbage. Didn't do anything worse than they did. Yeah, I didn't get that at all. It was not a great night for the penalty keepers. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened in this game. And so it's one of those situations where tonight, considering all the lineup uncertainty that was facing the Wild heading into this game, I am more than happy with the fact that they looked good tonight and they came away with the win, albeit against a very inferior team. But yeah, that was a shame because that it won't put a damper for us, but that's kind of the final thing for a really solid game for Joel Eriksson Ek is that he gets thrown out even though he didn't do anything. But real solid game for Joel Eriksson Ek here. And also from Will, got a new jersey for Brock Faber. That's a great choice. That is a great choice for a jersey, and I fully support it. Minnesota Wild will play the Los Angeles Kings on Thursday at the XL Energy Center. So an opportunity to get back home. Locked On Wild will, of course, have you covered with game content, pregame, as well as live postcast once again. So thanks for joining us here for tonight's Locked On Wild postcast as the Minnesota Wild pick up a win. And most importantly, nobody got hurt. That's the big key in this one tonight. So thanks to everybody who tuned in. Make sure that you check out our full array of Minnesota Wild content by subscribing on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any of our Locked On Wild content throughout the course of the week. We've got new episodes as well as pre, post, and during game content available for you, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network.